I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having
Thank
me
you
here.
so much for taking out time for us and giving us the pleasure to interview you. So there are just few couple of questions that I would like to ask you about the industry that you have been and how you started Adlift. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you is that the first job since the first job and to the time you build your own company, how has been your journey and like so far?
Sure. So I started my digital marketing career back in 2006. This was right after graduating out of doing my master's in computer science from New York and Columbia. That's where I started to work with a company called Interactive Corp. It's a little known company, but the brands that it held are the likes of Ticketmaster and City Search and Hotels, Expedia, but pretty huge internet conglomerate. So that's where I actually learned a lot of how digital marketing was increasing. A lot of the media spends from offline was moving onto online. From then on, I worked with a bunch of F500 companies like AT&T, Yahoo, and eBay. So pretty much been on the other side of the table on the brand side, working on different strategies across search, social, content. Is when I decided to start Adlift. So Adlift came into being back in 2009, but it really got serious. More of a serious company in 2011 when we signed the likes of PayPal and Barnes and Noble. So that's where we kind of realized that we're onto something. We're an agency that really provides digital ROI. And then from 2011, there was no looking back. Today we're about 100 team company across San Francisco, Mumbai, and Delhi. So the growth has been fantastic. It's been a roller coaster ride, lots of highs and lows, but it's definitely been educating.
Okay, that's a pretty good question. So, what is the placement of Adlift in this competitive digital ecosystem, and how are you different from other agencies in this industry?
Sure. So we're very, I would say we're very performance marketing oriented. So our core KPIs when we work with brands is driving ROI. That's the reason that they work with us. Our, I would say, secret sauce is our content marketing. So the way we look at performance marketing is divvied up into 4 verticals. You've got SEO, you've got paid marketing, which is across search and social. You've got creative. And then there is organic social. So there are four different verticals. Content marketing is the one that actually stitches all of these together, and that's our secret sauce. So we work very closely with the financial BFSI segment. We work with insurance, a couple of banks, a couple of huge travel OTAs. So across the board, we're pretty vertical agnostic in driving content solutions which stitch social, search, organic traffic, and drive ROI.
Okay. So in the recent past, you have been speaking a lot about the influencer marketing in India, and how do you see the digital economy adapting to the massive wave of influencing marketing?
So today, if you look at India's digital ad spend, there's upwards of 2 billion as of ending in 2019, upwards of 4.5 by the time you reach 2020, 2022. Today we envision influencer marketing to be somewhere around the 150 million spend. So we're still at about 10% of overall spends here. So we really see this increasing because there are a lot of stats that actually talk to influencer marketing. So we're seeing display ad click-through rates decrease over time. It's at 0.04% today. There's like display ad blindness. There are ad blockers that consumers are looking at because they're pretty much overloaded with ads. So influencer or peer-to-peer marketing is where we see a lot of growth. Where we've seen like Nielsen do a bunch of surveys where a consumer would rather trust someone they don't know on maybe their social media platforms versus actually trusting a. You actually see an ad about a bag versus a friend of yours who tells you, or an influencer that you actually follow. tells you about how they bought that bag, it will have a much higher purchase propensity. So we kind of saw that coming, and we started a joint venture with Yuvraj Singh, UV Ventures, called Viral. So Adlift and UV started a joint venture called Viral, and we've kind of seen, we work with a number of different brands, right from Nestle to HDFC to 99 Acres, the InfoEdge family, in doing a lot of influencer marketing campaigns, which have seen tremendous engagement from a branding perspective. And it's repeat. So once we do campaigns for brands, they kind of come back because they kind of see value in it. So we kind of see that happening.
Okay. So what do you feel about the programmatic is worth the buzz? Do you think programmatic is worth the buzz? And are there any future technologies that we're talking about to replace it?
Yeah, so I think programmatic was something that was formulated about three to 4 years ago. It was where you had there was inventory surplus, right? So there were more ad spaces to be sold than brands actually buying it, and then you kind of introduced programmatic, or not having pretty much adding third-party data into your buying decisions, and adding algorithms behind the scenes to figure out which consumer would react better to which ads. So it's definitely moved from where we were back in, let's say 2008, 2007, where you were doing ad buys very old school. So there's definitely an intelligence built in it. But like I mentioned, click-through rates are at an all-time low for display ads. I would say remarketing or retargeting via Facebook has a much higher ROI that we've seen versus programmatic ad buy. So to your question, where do we kind of see the future? I think the future, as I discussed, we would see a lot more ad spends happening across influencer marketing. We do see WhatsApp as a new channel for advertising, and we're doing some tests with that. So we actually see that as a new platform from a social media perspective of really generating quality consumer purchases and leads.
Okay. Since Adlift is actively working on content marketing, and do you see the scope of contextual content advertising picking up in India, and are you pitching them to your clients or in the future?
Yeah, so we started a platform back in 2014 called Contextual. So we actually envisioned a need for content, looking at how social media was really ramping up. So today the time spent on social has kind of reached an inflection point where it's overtaken time spent on television globally, and that time is spent on consuming content. So when we started Contextual, we were probably doing about 100 publications or creating 100 articles for our clients per month. Today we're upwards of 5,000 a month. We work very closely with the likes of ICICI Lombard, Future Generali, Bharti Extra, Yatra, Kentaro. So a number of big brands that actually use us across different verticals on content. So I only see this ramping up across video formats, different formats actually ramping up. We've seen a lot of interesting stats from Facebook that talks about how video consumption has dramatically increased, both on Facebook as well as on YouTube. So content from editorial, textual to video is something that's exploding currently.
Okay, just couple of few questions are left. What is your piece of advice to the digital entrepreneurs looking out to make a future in digital marketing?
I think it's an extremely hot space to be in. You have the likes of Udemy, Udacity, a bunch of online courses, institutes that are providing digital marketing, and the reason why they're doing that effectively is because there's a need of the hour. We ourselves look to hire smart folks with some level of experience across digital. We have a training program at Adlift that really ramps that up. I pretty much if you kind of look at marketing overall, this traditional media and then this digital is increasing far at a much higher rate, 35-40% year over year, versus television or radio or print. So when a specific space, you need more folks within that space to take that on and help with the industry growth. So I definitely see that as a very good career option.
Just last question, who do you follow as a role model, and what exactly do you get inspired by?
So a couple of folks like Brian Chesky, Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg. Been following them for a while. I think there's an interview of Jeff Bezos and sort of an excerpt that I kind of go by, and he actually put it very well, where he talked about work-life balance. And there's a lot of talk about having the right work-life balance at work, and I completely agree with that. What he mentioned was there needs to be more of, he won't call it like work-life balance, but it needs to be work-life harmony, which is something that I totally agree with. And where he was coming from was you could be spending maybe 8 hours, 9, 10 or 11 hours at work, but as long as you're thriving, as long as you're enjoying that time spent, spending those 12 or 13 hours at work doesn't mean that your home life would suffer, because you're having a lot of fun. You could be spending 2 hours at work and spending 6-7 hours at home, but because you're not really enjoying your work, your home life also suffers. So you could have per se your work-life balance, where we've kind of balanced things out, but you're not happy. So where does the happiness factor come in? Is work-life harmony is what I would go by, where wherever it is, whether it's at home or at work, if you're thriving, if you're really enthusiastic about what you're doing, you've got the perfect harmonious situation.
All right, thank you so much, Prashant, for your time, and I think a lot of people who are coming to the industry will be very glad to hear from you that you are welcoming them with an open heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you.